Cinderella, Cinderella, we can help our Cinderella. Yes, we're finally talking about Disney's Cinderella, which was a revolution in its own right because Disney hadn't had a hit in a while and World War II kind of took a hit on them and everyone else. So Cinderella was a big gamble for them, and it really worked out. 1950. Now this version is based on Perrault's version, which is very different from Grimm's version, and this is where you get the glass slipper, because it was a mistranslation of the French, which was apparently originally squirrel fur. So I think we are hashtag blessed that that mistranslation happened. So it's been a long time since I watched the Disney version. The original Disney version, 1950. It's not exactly one that I turn on the TV and go, you know what, I feel like watching 1950 Cinderella. But today, I did. And it starts in typical storybook fashion with an actual storybook. There's a narrator at the beginning describing the widower, her father, and how he remarried, and how Lady Tremaine was from a good family and had her own daughters, but oh no, then he died, and she decided to fend for only her 2 daughters and turn the other girl into a servant girl. And then used these quotes: abused, humiliated, forced to become a servant in her own house. And then we speed up to modern day and we see the birds trying to wake up Cinderella, and she's all like, 5 more minutes, turns over to go back to sleep. So that's where I get it from. Then she flicks a bird and says, serves you right for disturbing people who are dreaming. And then she talks about this lovely dream that she had and sings, a dream is a wish your heart makes, which, by the way, is a surprisingly difficult song to sing. I know this because I have sung it, and it takes a lot of sustained diaphragm, breath, and strength, like, good God. So, round of applause for that classic. Then the clock strikes 6 a.m. and she sneers. She talks to the clock. She's like, even this guy bosses me around. So, Cinderella, classically termed as passive and boring. Listen, the lady is spicy in her own right. Sure, she does what she has to do, but with sass. Then the birds and the mice help her with her toilette and wash up and get ready for the day, and she twirls and she sings. This is how we should all start our day. That is how I start my day some of the time. Oh, and as she's getting ready, this is when her mice friends tell her about a mouse stuck in the trap, and she's in the middle of selecting his new outfit, and we see Cinderella has a hobby of building little doll clothes for all of her mice and bird friends. So, she just wardrobes the vermin. So, we all know connection to nature in this film is her relationships to the animals, the mice, the birds, but not just the mice and the birds. She goes out and she feeds the chickens. First thing she has to do is feed Lucifer, which she also makes a comment about, saying, this isn't my favorite thing to do, but orders are orders. Okay, so upon hearing that there's a mouse stuck in a trap, she stops what she's doing, so worried for the little guy, and she speeds off to go take care of him, and she rescues him from the trap. She tells Jaq to go make friends with him. And half this movie, by the way, is just the mice and their shenanigans with Lucifer the cat and the birds. Yeah, no, half this movie is the animals. The mice speak broken English just because they're mice. They can't speak perfect English. Also, Gus-Gus is named Octavius. I didn't realize that. Where does Gus come from? She says, we'll call you Octavius, but Gus for short. And I'm like, Octavius, 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 Gus. I guess that's as close as we're going to get. So she talks to animals before she talks to people. This is how she starts her day. She has more of a relationship with beasts than with people who act like beasts. So isn't that a fun parallel? She summons Lucifer to come get his food down in the kitchen, and then she's making breakfast for the dog, and the dog was having a dream about chasing the cat, as Cinderella puts it, and talks to him. And here's an interesting comment that she makes. Bruno, do you want to lose a nice warm bed? So she makes this comment to the dog, Bruno, who wants to chase the cat, and she tells him that's wrong. Don't chase the cat, or you'll lose your nice warm bed, and it won't be worth it just for the sake of a dream. It won't be worth it for the sake of a dream. So this is reflecting on how she is more than just a servant. She's the only person, the only workhorse in this house, doing the laundry and the food and the cleaning and the bartering and 1,000 other things. And for the sake of a place to sleep at night, the last place that she ever called home. I know, I'm reading into it because it's 71 years later and I can. And there's so much to be said in the dialogue, which seems lighthearted and simple and actually packs quite the impact. Lucifer is the extension of the stepmother, in that while the stepmother is not torturing her, Lucifer is torturing her. And yes, Lucifer, which means light bringer, as we know, is also the name of the fallen angel who would later go on to become a Diablo. And torture her he does, and takes pleasure in it too. So let's see, she's feeding all of the chickens, and now the mice come up with an idea to distract Lucifer so they can go get some little corn kibbles. By the way, I wrote strength and balance because Cinderella carries 3 trays, 1 in each hand and 1 on her head, and all of them filled with boiling hot tea, up the flight of stairs, and delivers them into the rooms one by one while picking up baskets of laundry. Strength and balance. Say it again and give Cinderella a round of applause. Darn tootin'. Oh, but Gus did get caught by the cat when he was carrying too many corn kibbles. Too many. Poor little guy, he just couldn't make it work, and then he got chased by the cat, and then he got caught up in one of those little teacups, which the stepsister found and then screamed and ran to her mother, who then had to punish Cinderella. And when you first see the stepmother, you don't see the stepmother. You just see darkness and then eyes looming in the darkness. And of course, stepmother has to punish her with endless amounts of chores. And then we move on. And now we finally see the king, who has thrown a hole in the shape of a crown through the window, which is of course symbolic because there's a space in his kingly heart. We get this adorable painting moment. The king is emotional because his son is coming back, his son is an adult, and the king wants grandchildren, but the son isn't interested in any women, so there's no grandchildren on the menu, and he really wants family. So he's come up with this idea to throw a ball tonight, on the same night that the prince is returning home from wherever he's been right now. So all of Cinderella takes place in one day. I never realized that. I'm realizing it now. There's this adorable gag where the king talking about how his son grows up so quickly. His son grows up so quickly, and there's a painting on the wall of him as a little baby, and then a toddler, and then a child, and the paintings get bigger and bigger and bigger until he's a fully grown man on a horse, and it's taking up the entire room wall. He never names the prince. He just calls him the boy. The boy. The boy. I mean, that's very telling for what the prince's situation at home is. We often reflect on how the character of the prince tends to be some type of man-child, and here he's called the boy. So there's often a trope where the prince hasn't had the opportunity to become a man because he's treated as a child in the home. All right, by royal decree, we shall have a ball. And now we go back over to Cinderella's, where we get the Sing Sweet Nightingale song. It's kind of like Whistle While You Work, except you singing. And she's scrubbing, and then the cat is all like bloop, 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 because the cat is El Diablo. And this is when we get the messenger. So Cinderella interrupts the singing lesson. It's a message that the prince is throwing a ball tonight, and Cinderella hears every maiden in the land. And guess what? She stands up for herself. We don't talk about this often enough. This Cinderella has agency. It's just in small and subtle ways that's dissatisfying to a modern audience because we've put up with a lot as humanity. So Cinderella stands up for herself and says, I can go to the ball. It says, every maiden, I'm a member of this family. I can go to this ball. Why not? And so the stepmother uses the magic of if you finish your chores and if you have something to wear, which is her loophole way of saying, I didn't say yes. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes. And it puts hope in Cinderella's heart, and she goes upstairs and she starts fixing up her mother's old dress. So there is reference to her mother in this. But of course, we have the stepmother and the stepsisters just keeping her super, super busy all day. Not to mention, she got punished earlier that morning, so she already had an endless list of things to do. Nonetheless, this is when the birds and the mice realize they can help our Cinderella, and they sing Cinderella, Cinderella, and they put the dress together. But I also wrote this down. The birds and the mice represent the universe conspiring in your favor to make things happen, because Cinderella has backed up her life with belief that things will get better, that dreams will come true, no matter how your heart is grieving. If you go on believing, the dream that you wish will come true. So remember to ask yourself, what am I wishing? Now it's the end of the day, and tired and weary and downtrodden, Cinderella gets the door. It's the carriage driver. She goes to get the stepsisters and the stepmother, who are like, "Oh, Cinderella, you're not dressed." And she takes it in stride, nonchalantly says, "No, I'm not going." Even though on the inside, she's just like, "You know I am not dressed." But on the inside. But when she goes upstairs, what wonderful surprise! Her mother's dress, updated and modernized with beads and a sash that the stepsisters had thrown away. So when she comes downstairs in it, oh, the stepmother is so menacing. And this is how abusers do it. Not through overt attacks. No, they do it quietly, through suggestion. She goes over and lifts the beads and comments on them so that the stepdaughters will notice that those used to be theirs. And this is exactly what happens. The stepmother does nothing except use the power of insinuation, and the stepsisters do everything. Yes, they rip and they tear. Literally, they tear her to shreds. Honey, this is called assault, okay? Stepsisters are about to do some jail time. All right, Cinderella runs into the yard, sobbing beneath a weeping willow. And in the original tale, she does cry under the tree that she planted on her mother's grave. So the tree and the crying there is referenced. I know you noticed. And this is where the fairy godmother transforms. This is Cinderella's darkest moment. She gives up. She says she can't go on dreaming, as this haunting version of a dream is a wish is playing in the garden. She's responding to it. I can't go on dreaming. I can't go on wishing. There's nothing left for me. And then the fairy godmother manifests with her lap as Cinderella's pillow. So the fairy godmother is very soothing. She's grandmotherly. She does little bits of magic, just revealing her wand. And we have the famous Bippity Boppity Boo here. Side note, Cinderella is so a Halloween princess. I mean, not just the fact that her carriage is a pumpkin, but also there's witchiness, there's divination, and when she's returning home in an ever-shrinking pumpkin, which is horrifying, she almost gets trapped in there. So there's enough spooky in the Cinderella tale. That's it. Halloween princess, I've declared it. She turns the horse into a driver, and she turns the mice into horses, and this way they all get a shift in perspective. The dress. And this is in the fairy godmother's own words. Simple, but daring. So we got the very first magical transformation of the Cinderella dress, which occurs in a sweeping motion from the ground up of sparkles swooshing, and her dress plumes into existence. And then her pink tatters turn into the illustrious silver gown that often gets portrayed as blue later for marketing reasons, but as we all know, is in fact silver. Meanwhile, the prince just arrived home, so you know he must be exhausted, and he's yawning while the women are being introduced to him, which is always interpreted as boredom, but I mean, dude just found out about this ball when he got there, so see, that's courtly manners. And from the high up area, the Duke and the King are watching, wondering, waiting. And the Grand Duke is being sarcastic and actually narrating how he meets Cinderella in a sarcastic way. But he looks up. Cinderella is busy admiring the decorations and twirling and going, "This is so wonderful." She doesn't actually say that. And he notices her and he just goes over to her and she's startled and they go dance off. And the waltz that picks up is "So This Is Love," but sped up, in which they later sing to each other. Honestly, the singing is one of the few times that he talks at all. So this is love. The Grand Duke calls the king an incurable romantic. And then the king is like, you watch them. I'm going off to bed to leave the little lovebirds alone. But not too alone. You make sure they're engaged by the end of the night. But of course, eventually that clock has just got to strike midnight. And when it does, she must go. To which the prince tries and stop her. And she gives him the excuse, oh, I haven't yet met the prince. And then this is the prince's one line. The prince, but madam, and she's gone. That's his one line in the entire film. So she runs away, she's chasing, and the Grand Duke is chasing her, and she, of course, loses her teeny tiny little shoe. She tries to go back for it, realizes it's not worth it, hops in the carriage. The carriage starts shrinking around her with her inside, which is terrifying. Yeah, Halloween princess, because that's a horror story. So after everything returns to its natural state, her tattered dress, the mice, the actual horse, and the pumpkin is destroyed by all of the horsemen chasing her, she just sits there like drunk with happiness and reminisces, and she really doesn't realize that was the prince. She talks about how the man she danced with was so charming, she doubts the prince could even compete, or compare. Both. So that's another thing I never noticed. She did not know that she had been dancing with the prince. Huh. Take that, everyone who said Cinderella's a gold digger. She is. She is starstruck when she hears that the prince is having everyone try on this tiny glass slipper, which she knows belongs to her, because apparently he's fallen in love with the wearer of the shoe and will marry no one but her. And this, of course, gives her away to the stepmother because she's in a daze while they're throwing all of these laundry piles on her. And she's just like, the prince, what? What to wear, they comment. And she drops all the clothes and she's like, yes, of course. What to wear? What to wear? And then she's off. So the stepmother follows her and locks her in her room. And then it's up to the animals. My God, they go through so much for Cinderella. Bless. See, this is why you're kind to nature. When you're kind to nature, it does wonderful things for you. I'm not saying you should only be kind to nature so that it does wonderful things for you. I'm just saying there's always benefits. And if mice and birds conspiring to help you find love and redemption and, human rights, then by Jove, I say you treat that nature and mice and birds with respect. Ha ha! Now, the prince is not even on this hunt. In later movie versions, he will be. But on this movie version, it's just the Grand Duke. The Grand Duke is exhausted. He hasn't slept all night. And he had to face a terrifying version of the king who chased him down with a sword. So the Grand Duke is the one trying on all the shoes. And while Anastasia and Drizella are having their own shoe shenanigans, the mice are trying to get the key out of her pocket. Up all the stairs, Gus-Gus practically has a heart attack. Honestly, they did all the hard labor. Okay, just most. They get it up all the stairs and oh my gosh, they're finally at the door and freaking Lucifer finally gets Gus after the whole movie of chasing him down. He's got him trapped with the key. The birds come at him with dishes and cups. The mice come at him with a flaming candle. And finally, Cinderella's like, get Bruno! Because remember, it's Bruno's dream to chase down Lucifer. Dreams really do come true because here comes Bruno charging up the stairs, finally chasing Lucifer. And they get the key. Cinderella charges down the stairs just in time as the Grand Duke is leaving. Wait, she says. May I try it on? And oh, the stepmother is so determined. She trips the advisor, who trips and the shoe goes smashing. And I swear the Grand Duke's heart breaks for like a small moment. And then Cinderella produces the other slipper, which of course confirms she could be the only one to have this other slipper if she was the woman there. But they try it on nonetheless. The stepmother is aghast. And oh my God, what an expression. It's like that painting, The Scream. She tries on the shoe. We make it to the final scene in which she is now married to the prince and she loses her wedding shoe as they run down the stairs and, we culminate the dream is a wish your heart makes when you don't stop believing. No matter how your heart is grieving, as long as you keep believing, the dream that you wish will come true. And And there you have it, Disney's Cinderella, setting the precedence for Cinderellas to come for a while. Because I've read lots of people commenting on this newest version of Cinderella, saying, well, they already have the Disney version and the Disney remake, so why do we need any more Cinderellas? Ha ha, you fools, didn't you know? There are dozens of them, dozens, and there are more. There will always be more. Cinderella will constantly be retold, because Cinderella is the story of the everyman. Women are downtrodden everywhere, overworked, exhausted, underappreciated, only able to establish relationships with animals, the only creatures who will not abuse them. This is why we're going down the Cinderella Circle. Remember, this always culminates to human rights. Cinderella is more than just rags to riches and marrying a prince. Cinderella is about getting away from drudgery and labor, getting to indulge in refinery, in being clean, in wearing something so beautiful that you feel like magic in it. And in those moments, finding connections that better your life. Yes, in the old tale, it happens through marriage, but it doesn't have to be through marriage. That was simply one way to elevate. And elevate she does, because the guy turns out to be a freaking prince. So, orphaned by both her parents, check. Wicked stepmother, wicked stepsisters, check, check. Although in a Disney sequel, one of the stepsisters has her own redemption arc and romance novel, but we're only going through Cinderella tales, so that's neither here nor there. Connection to nature with the animals, check, 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 check. Magical transformation and magical dress, always. We have a literal fairy godmother. We have literal magic. The pumpkin shows up. Ah, the pumpkin. It is a glass slipper. And of course, this version is a musical, the Disney version. So there you have it. Next week, we'll talk about the Disney remake and the iconic dress that they finally did just turn blue, since they had already been representing it as blue for all these years. Stay tuned. Honestly, I see so much of my personality reflected in the fact that I talk to birds, I sing, and I'm obsessed with dreams. God! See you next time. So this is what makes life divine. My heart's aglow, and now I know, yes, I do my own duets.